All right, let's talk about something you probably have in your house right now, the electric iron. I know, it sounds kind of boring, right? But stick with me, because this thing is actually a little masterpiece of physics, chemistry, and engineering all rolled into one.
Have you ever really thought about what's happening when you iron a shirt? I mean, how does this simple-looking box take on total chaos at a molecular level and win? Because that's literally what's happening. You're fighting a microscopic battle every single time, turning a wrinkled mess into perfect, crisp order. So, how does it do it?
Well, before we had electricity, the only way to fight wrinkles was with basically brute force and fire. Seriously, we're talking about people in ancient China using heated stones. In medieval Europe, they were using metal pans filled with hot coals. And then came these massive, heavy blocks of iron called sad irons, which you had to heat up right in a fireplace. It was just a slow, clumsy, and honestly, pretty dangerous way to get your clothes looking decent.
So yeah, that's where our story really kicks off. This age-old problem of wrinkles, and how the first attempts to solve it were all about trying to tame fire.
And as you can imagine, using fire like that had some serious downsides. The heat, totally impossible to control. You'd scorch your clothes constantly. Your nice clean fabric would get covered in soot and ash, and let's not forget the constant risk of burning yourself or, setting your house on fire. It was a mess. There just had to be a better way.
Okay, so to get to that better way, we need to take a quick detour into some science. We have to understand what a wrinkle actually is, because this is a battle that's happening on a scale you can't even see, right down at the molecular level.
So the main villain in our story? It's something called a hydrogen bond. See, fabrics like cotton are made of these super long chains of molecules, polymers. And what holds these chains together are these relatively weak little forces, the hydrogen bonds. When you throw your clothes in the wash, these bonds break. And as they dry, they just reform all over the place, randomly, locking the fibers into that crumpled, wrinkled shape we all know and hate.
So what ironing is really is a kind of molecular reprogramming. It's a simple three-step process. Step 1, heat. The heat from the iron zaps those hydrogen bonds, breaking them and making the fibers all flexible. Step 2, pressure. You press down, and that physically flattens and realigns all those polymer chains. And finally, step 3, cooling. As the fabric cools down, new hydrogen bonds form. But this time, they lock everything into that new, perfectly smooth shape. Pretty cool, right?
For hundreds of years, heat meant fire. That was it. But then, in the late 1800s, this brand new force, electricity, comes on the scene. And it sparked this totally revolutionary idea. What if you could create heat cleanly, controllably, with no fire at all?
And that question led to this incredible moment of invention. In 1882, an American inventor named Henry W. Seeley patented the electric flat iron. He figured out how to harness electricity to solve this ancient problem, and just like that, a whole new era began.
The secret behind it all is a physics principle called Joule heating. And it's actually pretty simple. When you push an electric current through something that resists it, a resistor, the electrons have to work really hard to get through. All that struggle and effort gets converted into heat. So the more resistance, the more heat you get. Simple as that.
Okay, but you can't just use any old material. You need the right stuff. And engineers found the perfect thing for the job, nichrome wire. It's an alloy, a mix of nickel and chromium. And it's perfect because, 1, it has super high resistance, so it gets really hot. 2, it can get incredibly hot without melting. And 3, it doesn't rust or oxidize, which means it's going to last for a really, really long time.
So electricity solved the clean heat problem, but it created a brand new one, control. Think about it. The first electric irons just got hotter and hotter and hotter until you physically unplugged them. So the next big challenge was figuring out how to tame all that heat.
And the solution was this brilliant little mechanical gadget, the bimetallic thermostat. It's just a strip made of 2 different metals fused together. Now, here's the clever part. As it heats up, one of those metals expands faster than the other, which forces the whole strip to bend. At just the right temperature, it bends so much that it physically breaks the electrical circuit, cutting off the power. Then, as it cools, it straightens back out, reconnects the circuit, and the heat kicks back in. And that little click you hear from an older iron, that's it. That's physics in action. Of course, the sole plate, the bottom part that does all the work, that evolved too. It started with good old cast iron, which was durable but super heavy. Then came aluminum, which was great because it heated up way faster. But today, the gold standards are stainless steel, which gives you this great balance of easy gliding and durability, and ceramic coatings, which make for an incredibly smooth, non-stick surface.
All right, but the next huge leap forward came when someone decided to add water to the mix. Steam. Steam completely transformed the iron from just a pretty good tool into the absolute ultimate weapon against wrinkles.
So, why is steam such a game changer? Well, a dry iron just uses heat to break those hydrogen bonds. But a steam iron, it literally shoots hot water molecules deep into the fabric. This does two things. It breaks the bonds way faster, and it makes the fibers themselves more pliable, more flexible, and just way easier to press into a new shape. So steam basically gives you three major wins. It transfers heat into the fabric more efficiently. It helps the fibers absorb moisture, which lets them relax, and it just dramatically increases their flexibility. What does all that mean for you? Better results with less work in way less time. It's a no-brainer.
And all of this brings us right up to today. Because the modern iron isn't just a simple heater anymore. It's a seriously sophisticated, high-tech piece of equipment, a world away from that original 1882 patent. Just think about the power for a second. A modern, high-end iron can pull up to 3,000 watts. That is a ton of controlled energy. It's what allows it to heat up in just a few seconds and produce these incredibly powerful bursts of steam on command.
And they are just packed with tech. We're talking electronic sensors and tiny little computer chips, microcontrollers, for perfectly precise temperature. You've got auto shut-off features for safety, which is huge, complex valves so they don't drip water everywhere. Some even have self-cleaning systems. They've really evolved from simple heaters into what you could call smart thermal systems.
So when you step back and look at the whole story, the electric iron is so much more than just a laundry tool, isn't it? It really represents that moment in history when we finally tamed electricity and brought it right into our homes, applying all these complex ideas from physics and material science to solve a really simple everyday problem.
So the next time you pick up an iron, just take a second to think about it. That perfectly pressed shirt, that crisp collar, that's not just the result of a little heat. It's the culmination of more than 100 years of innovation. It's a quiet, everyday triumph of thermodynamics, material science, and pure human ingenuity.